Hi, everyone. Apologies for the slightly late start. We've been trying to look at reorganizing the agenda. We do have a couple of apologies sent from colleagues that would be joining us initially. Maybe let me introduce myself first. I'm Rachel Ong. I'm the Regional Coordinator for the Global Fund Advocates Network Asia Pacific. And thank you so much for joining us today for our Unitaid 101 Strengthening Engagement of Asia Pacific Advocates in Unitaid. Next slide, please, Ken. We are organizing this we're co-organizing this call with the Unitaid Advocates Network. Daniel Townsend, who is the coordinator for UAN, is unfortunately recovering from surgery, so apologies sent from him. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements before we move on. Please note that this call is held in English, as participants do switch off your videos and mute your microphones. If you are experiencing slow bandwidth, please do close any unnecessary programs and/or applications on your device. Please feel free to use the public chat box to engage with one another throughout the session. So please do introduce yourself in the chat box. Do note that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on our social media channels afterwards. GFAN AP is committed to ensuring that this virtual event is conducted in an inclusive and safe environment and will not tolerate harassment of any kind. Participants that engage in disruptive behavior may be removed without any prior notice. Next slide, please, Ken. So do note that this webinar is held with the intention of fostering broader engagement of the Asia-Pacific community and civil society and Unitaid processes through raising the awareness amongst Asia-Pacific communities and civil society of Unitaid, including its mandate, key priorities and focuses, governance and programmatic areas. We'd like to introduce to you as well the community's delegation and NGO delegations on the Unitaid board, as well as its priorities. And they would also provide any key decisions from the Unitaid board meeting for you to understand. Next slide, please, Ken. So unfortunately, we've had apologies sent from the Secretariat that they are unable to join the call today for sharing that the mandate, the key priorities, but we will hear from both Abdul and Olayide around understanding Unitaid a little bit more. We'll hear from them as well, their work and priorities and the key outcomes from the 47th board meeting. We'll also have some perspectives from colleagues that have been involved from donor countries, Japan, as well as South Korea, about their work on Unitaid, and we'll take any questions and answers afterwards. So without further ado, thank you all for joining us. And I'd like to hand this over to Abdul and Olayide, just perhaps to give a very quick overview of Unitaid before we move into the debrief. So maybe we can close the slides for now.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Good morning, everyone from Ghana. It's a little bit early on my side, but happy to take this role just to give a more high-level brief about Unitaid, but more importantly about our delegation, what we do on the executive board of Unitaid and why that is important for our communities. So Unitaid is a hosted organization by WHO. So legally, Unitaid is under WHO. Unitaid is not identified as the traditional UN organizations, and Unitaid is more nimble and catalytic in nature. So the secretariat is much more smaller than the traditional UN organizations, and some people may even confuse Unitaid's role as being that of the Global Funds. But Unitaid's role is actually introducing key innovative health solutions, trying to create market availability, ensuring the right conditions are set for the introduction of the health innovations. For example, the DTG success story that was rolled out, Unitaid was very integral in ensuring that voluntary licensing was procured through the medicines patent pool that is being funded by the Unitaid, and also just in working with countries and implementing partners. For example, Chai, PAF, and FINE, to make sure key products are introduced rapidly and ensuring that we are getting the last mile distribution and ensuring equitable access as much as possible. So Unitaid's interventions are mostly focused in the African continent. However, some interventions have also been tested in, for example, South America, in Brazil, and we have in the past some projects in Vietnam, Bangladesh, India. Well, of course, that is where most of the manufacturing happens. So I would say more like a high level, because I'm not in any qualified position to give the granular details about Unitaid, but just give a perspective as the ultimate board member for the communities delegation and what we've been experiencing being on the board. And Unitaid has three strategic objectives, and one is the introduction of the key health products that I've just mentioned. And the second one is also creating the systematic conditions to ensure that the health innovations are also being rapidly introduced and scaled in low and middle income countries. But more importantly, the strategic objective three, which our delegation and that of NGOs and African country delegation really focus on, is on partnership, fostering that partnership to ensure the demand generation and, of course, the advocacy around ensuring that the innovations are fit for purpose and they are fit for communities, and they are also aligned with country priorities as much as possible. So that is more like in a high level what Unitaid is. It's a very technical organization and will require a very technical person from the secretariat to do that. But I apologize if I've done a very bad job trying to get you to understand what Unitaid does. So I will just invite Olaide, maybe if you could give a few words, then I'll come back to maybe giving an overview of our delegation. Over to you, Olaide.
Hi, thank you so much, Abdul. And honestly, you have done a great job. Just to build on what Abdul has said, really, Unitaid is about, access to health innovations to ensure that healthy lives are achieved, and it's also promoting well-being for all. We know that in the past, what has been happening is a situation where new drugs, new diagnostics are developed in the developed countries, and it takes years and several years for people in lower and middle income countries to be able to access those new innovations and health products. And so what Unitaid has come to do, or Unitaid has been doing over the past close to 20 years of its inception, is to bridge that access gap. And so in doing that, they've been working on different disease areas, as Abdul has mentioned, and those include HIV and co-infections, tuberculosis, malaria, women and children's health, also in response to global health emergencies, as well as cross-cutting technologies and topics. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about the recent advancements in terms of access to lenacapavir, and that is one key area that Unitaid has been pushing, among other areas, to ensure that the access to drugs, and diagnostics is not only affordable, what is available to people who need them most, and they are able to ensure that we bridge the access gap faster, leveraging on their partnerships with private sector, with researchers, with key partners, with country level partners, and even with other global health institutions like the Global Fund and other key partners, to just ensure that, we are able to bridge that access gap. And like Abdul had said, there are three strategic objectives that Unitaid has. The first is to accelerate the introduction and adoption of key health products. The second is to create systemic conditions for sustainable and equitable access. We all know, some of the things that happened, in the aftermath of COVID, when there were vaccines, where, people in the developed countries were able to access vaccines, but it took a while for those in the developing countries to be able to do that. And the third thing that Unitaid leverages on is fostering inclusive and demand-driven partnerships for innovation. So, even when those innovations are coming on board in countries and are being piloted in countries, one of Unitaid's strategies is to ensure that there is country ownership such that countries are able to invest in the scale up of those innovations for the benefit of their citizens. So I think I'll just stop there and hand over back to Abdul. Thank you.
Thank you, Olaide. You closed that really, really well. And just to also reiterate, so Unitaid's mandate originally is just on the 3 traditional diseases. So that includes HIV, TB, and malaria. But of course, over the years, Unitaid's mandate has been growing. So maternal and child health also has been included into that pool. And more recently, during COVID, PPR has also been included. And just next year is marking Unitaid's 20 years anniversary. And we invite you all to celebrate that with us. So I will just jump to what we do as a delegation and maybe introduce who we are to the rest of the participants on the call. And just before I get into the debrief of the AB 48, so the Unitaid Communities Delegation comprises of just the people, the end users of Unitaid innovation. So for example, people living with HIV, people living with affected by TB and malaria, but of course, other conditions that we have highlighted during our overview of Unitaid. And we bring our life realities and experiences to shape how innovations are designed and implemented as much as to ensure equitable access for all. And I must have forgotten to introduce myself. My name is Abdul Fattah Salifu. I live and work in Ghana with the Ghana Network of Persons Living with HIV. And I'm currently the alternate board member for the Unitaid Community Delegation. Unfortunately, the board member, Carol Nawina from Zambia, is not able to join us today. She has other competing conflicting events that she has to attend. She sends her regards. So our delegation is hosted by the Global Network of Persons Living with HIV in South Africa, where our liaison officer is also based. And our mandate is to ensure that Unitaid policies, priorities, and investments reflect equity and feasibility, and of course, acceptability and the real conditions that we face in our everyday lives. We work through global and regional networks. Like I've mentioned, our hosted partnership with the Global Network of Persons Living with HIV, but of course, sometimes with ICW, and more importantly, with our national networks. For example, when we are organizing ICASA events, doing AIDS conferences, and of course, when we have our delegation retreat in the implementing countries. Yeah, so we are also a community of all the 3 diseases that I've mentioned. So to be part of the delegation, you must be somebody who is living with and affected by the 3 diseases that I've mentioned, and not leaving malaria out. Of course, everybody on the African continent and that of the world at one point have experienced malaria. So we bring our authentic real life experiences and insights into shaping the policies around how innovations are designed. For example, lenacapavir, how communities really want lenacapavir to be deployed and where and at what time, so that we are getting medicines and diagnostics as quickly as possible. And just to translate to how we work, our delegation operates through a collaborative process. We are a delegation of about 35 membership cut across the African continent, but of course we have delegation members from Asia and I think from India, and then Aditya, who unfortunately is not also able to join us today. And we analyze board and committee documents together. So with the different diverse disease backgrounds that we have, we bring that rich experience to analyze Unitaid interventions and around board documents. For example, next year, we'll be getting into the next strategy development. So we'll use that experiences around some of the innovations that have already been introduced and some in the pipeline to shape how Unitaid strategy should look like in the next five or so years. And we do the discussions usually internally, and then we consolidate our feedback into the board and then the committee meetings where we sit and also present. Okay, I'm seeing a question. Asia Pacific. So we have delegation members from India. I'm not sure. It's like Aditya is from. Wim, correct me if I'm wrong. Which country? I must have forgotten. But we have three members from Indonesia. Thanks, Rachel. We have three members from India. So over the years, we've been trying to make sure all countries that are implementing Unitaid projects are also well represented on a delegation. And our board members, of course, Carol and I. Hi, Rachel. I can see you saying hello. Should I continue? You have something to say? Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. So our board members, including Carol and I, also lead the delegation engagement. For example, when we are at the board, we present our board talking points and our board insights into some of the key decisions that are made. But of course, we don't do the work alone. We have key advisors who also contribute their rich experiences. For example, they've been with Unitaid for close to 10 years. So of course, their inputs are always very much welcome and critical to the work that we do as a delegation. And of course, our wider networks, ensuring that our perspectives are also grounded in the life experiences that we have in our diversities. And we also consult our communities in our respective countries, ensuring that we also reflect, for example, if an implementing partner is submitting a proposal to Unitaid to implement, for example, a project, then we usually maybe seek insights to some of our community members within the countries or within the partnership networks that they are engaging, maybe in a consortium or CAP members that they are engaging, just to find out that the engagements were meaningful and the real and actual communities are being engaged. And we try to safeguard community engagement as much as possible, also advocating and ensuring that we are getting resources tailored to support community and demand generation activities in the grants. We work closely with civil society partners, including that of our NGO delegation colleagues. And we also try to maintain a very distinct role because often than not, people try to confuse the two delegation, what we do, but we do absolutely different things. We bring the lived experiences to shape how the innovations should and reflect how they should be deployed and how we actually are needed. Some of the access barriers that are traditionally left out when discussions are being made about what and what should interventions address, then that is what we are contributing. And more often than not, our NGO colleagues also add to that rich experience, but also providing technical insights to shape the project. And in everything we do, we aim to be simple and ensure that Unitaid innovations reach the people who need it the most, and in ways that are effective, equitable, and also grounded in dignity and lived experience. And I'll also be happy to share with you that we now have a functioning website. So you are welcome to check out our website. The name is unitaidcommunitiesdelegation.com. You can just go and click that and go to our website and check what we have been uploading. But in the meantime, it's very new, so not a lot of information can be found there. So you can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter as well. So that is what we do and some of the priorities of our delegation. So I will just proceed with the EB debrief. Maybe I'll give the chance for Olaide to maybe give an overview of their delegation and we can come to the debrief if that works with you, Olaide.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Abdul. And again, good morning, colleagues. Just to give a bit of a background, because I realized that maybe when we were introducing Unitaid, we missed out on that. So the executive board of Unitaid comprises of 13 members, and we have one representative each from the 5 founding countries of Unitaid. And those 5 founding countries are Brazil, Chile, France, Norway, and the United Kingdom. And over time, we've also had representatives from Spain and South Korea. We also have representatives on the board from the African countries. We have representatives from the NGOs delegation, from the NGOs, representatives from the communities. We have representatives from foundations. So currently, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation sits on the board. We have one representative from World Health Organization, WHO, and one representative from Japan. So you can see that on the constitution of the Unitaid board, there are 2 seats designated for civil society, one for communities and one for NGOs. So what does the NGO delegation basically do? Again, just to state that on the NGO delegation, we have the main member to the board, who is Sharon Ann Lynch, who is unable to join this call, and myself, Olaide Akoni. I am the alternate NGO delegation member. And what do we do on the board really? Basically, we perform board-related functions and responsibilities, and that entails, analyzing, voting, analyzing information that has been provided to us by the Unitaid Secretariat, providing feedback on board governance related documents like the investment plan, the functional review. We also provide go ahead or no go ahead comments regarding proposals that have been tabled by the Secretariat to the board. Again, we also seek input from our own constituencies regarding board decisions, and we provide feedback on priorities that Unitaid needs to take from our constituency perspective, as well as on the projects that Unitaid seeks to embark upon. In terms of our structure of our delegation, we have a database of close to 250 members, NGOs who are working in the areas of HIV, TB, malaria, and all the other diseases that Unitaid has now taken on board are welcome to be a part of the growing contact base of the NGO delegation. But when we talk about the NGO delegation, we're really speaking about, the main representative on the NGO delegation board. That's Sharon Ann, myself as the alternate. We also have a liaison office that is hosted by Stop AIDS UK. So our liaison person is Molly Thompson. She's our liaison officer, just as Wim is the liaison focal person for the communities delegation. In addition to that, we have 11 key advisors, and one of our 11 key advisors used to be a former board member representing the NGO constituency. Her name is FIFA Rahman. So she is from Malaysia, and she is the representative. She is the only one from the Asia Pacific region on our own delegation. But we also have people who are not on the delegation, but constantly provide feedback and review documents, as the need arises. And so our key advisors, we have a team of 11 key advisors, and I had mentioned that FIFA from Asia Pacific is one of those key advisors. And what do the key advisors do for us? They are more like an advisory group, because many of them come from different backgrounds: HIV, TB, malaria, intellectual property, patents. Some of them have understanding of patent laws and all these other issues that Unitaid also has to deal with in the course of its work. And so they provide us with input as we review key documents that are provided to us by Unitaid. They ensure that the voices and the interest of NGOs working on these disease areas are well represented. And we also, on a regular basis, have check-in calls before the board meetings, before the committee meetings with our delegation members, as well as those who are on the database who are interested in reviewing any of the key policy documents that the Secretariat shares with us, so that they can also understand what's going on and how and how they can engage with Unitaid, and we can also capture their voices and all of that. So we've had a lot of useful feedback from our members, delegation members on the field, who reflect on and provide suggestions and input on some of the work that Unitaid is doing, and how we as NGO can add, the NGO delegation can add value. Just like Abdul mentioned, we also work closely with the communities delegation in terms of pushing for stronger community and civil society engagement on the in the way and manner in which Unitaid does its work. Because one of the things that has been a hot topic, and I'm sure you will see it as we provide a debrief on the last board meeting that held just last week in Tokyo, Japan, is there has been consistently between us and the communities delegation, there has been a consistent back and forth and discussion with Unitaid on what exactly they mean by communities and civil society engagement, because oftentimes what they mean is that, oh, because somebody is involved with, because an implementer has picked a community group to be an implementer, is equal to civil society engagement, but we believe that community and civil society engagement is broader than that, and those are some of the conversations that we've been pushing on the board since earlier this year. And so those are just a brief on what we do as the NGO delegation, and just to also note that we also have a website, but I may not be able to provide the details now because, of course, it's under development. But we have a huge database, and please feel free to contact us. You can contact us through our liaison officer, who is Molly Thompson, and her email is molly@stopaids.org.uk. I'll type it in the chat box, and so please feel free to reach out to her so she can also add you to our contact database. And I see that Blessing here, she had mentioned that she was on the communities delegation and now she's on the NGO delegation. We see her in many of our meetings where she provides feedback to some of the documents that are tabled before us ahead of either the committee meetings or the board meetings. So I'll pause there, and maybe we'll now move on into the outcomes of the last board meeting that held in December. Thank you. Back to you, Abdul.
Thank you, Olaide. So, Rachel, if we can just move the slide forward. Yeah. All right, thank you. So the recent board meeting that just concluded in Tokyo was a moment of decision making for the board. And on the screen, you can see a series of list of important but critical decisions that were made, and I will just take our time to go through them, but more briefly on a high level, so that people get to know what it means. And for example, some of the terminology, some of us may not be aware what it actually means. And for example, in the space of Unitaid, what it actually means and entails. Yeah, so the first one is around the midterm review analysis that started, I think, like a year ago with the current strategy. And in the light of the funding cuts that we experienced and some of the shifts that had happened during COVID-19 had really put a lot of global health institutions in a moment of rethinking priorities and how they actually work. But more importantly, all these shifts have actually affected the resource mobilization of most global health institutions, and Unitaid, amongst others, has also been impacted greatly. So the midterm review actually highlighted a lot of key issues and recommendations, and I think a lot of it has already been started to be implemented, but some very important ones that are very important for our today call is around the strategic objective 3, which is around communities and civil society engagement, and that of country stakeholder engagement. There was this broad discussion about aligning priorities with countries and ensuring that Unitaid interventions are aligning and addressing country-specific needs. But in that discussion, we try as much as possible to make sure that community priorities are also validated, ensuring that the community voice is not lost. Because often than not, country engagement usually does not translate to community and civil society engagement. Governments usually have their traditional partners that they engage, then they term them as community and civil society, but they aren't the true communities and civil society that should be engaged to ensure that priorities are set up, for example, in the National Strategic Plan development, which also is very important to the Global Fund funding request. So when this happened, we needed to join our heads with the NGO delegation and that of the Secretariat being the pen holder to actually put together what we actually want to see. When we say community engagement, what does that mean for our communities, especially on the board, but more importantly, when it comes to designing the projects and also implementing the projects. So the community and civil society engagement paper actually presented three options. The first option was around maintaining what has the current practices, the current norm of actually living engagement to the implementing partner. So the implementing partner actually decides the civil society or the community network that they engage, and they decide the amount of money that goes into civil society and community engagement work. And over the years, we have seen that it is not generating the right impact, the kind of impact that we want to see, the kind of impact that also ensures that the innovations are adopted and scale and ensure that people who need them the most are actually have an access to them. So that was the genesis for the community and civil society engagement paper. And the second option was the enhanced option, more like just taking the first, what is currently being practiced and changing it a bit, ring fencing resources towards civil society and community engagement and making sure that it is very much independent and is not affected by implementing partner decisions, but also ensuring that it aligns with priorities that are set up nationally and also that of communities' real life experiences. And it applies to the country engagement paper too as well. And the last option paper was the more ambitious option, setting up a separate financing mechanism and models for community and civil society engagement, using third parties to manage grants. But of course, our delegations kicked against this because it was just going to bring about another layer of barrier to accessing funds. For example, the admin funds, the admin costs towards these third-party institutions would just be a huge amount of money that could go into community and civil society networks to actually do real work that can generate more impact and enhance standard of living for our communities. So those were the options papers that were presented in the line of strengthening and doubling down on SO3. And another paper that was presented was the performance management framework, which actually highlighted how Unitaid has been successful in implementing a strategy from 2023 up to 2025. And well, a lot of, not surprising, Unitaid is kind of catalytic in nature. And of course, some of the successes that came up about this strategy implementation was around introducing key health products faster and ensuring that, for example, if accessing, for example, in the past, drugs could take maybe 10 years for us to get access to them. Now we are getting them in 5 or less. So those are some of the key and very high level successes that came about from the performance review. And of course, very important recommendation that was also highlighted by the midterm review was around resource mobilization. And it's something that we didn't mention in the overview. So Unitaid was set up and the funds were coming in from an innovative approach through airline tax that was set up for between the donor countries. So Unitaid traditionally didn't have to go out and mobilize funds, but the environment has changed, donor funding is dwindling, and of course, ODA keeps reducing, and that is also seen at Unitaid also. So the next generation financing was also kind of like whether was presented to present different options. For example, philanthropic reaching out to philanthropists to see how they can also support Unitaid's work, resource-based financing, and of course, I'm missing the third option. Maybe when Olaide comes, she'll be able to provide that third option. And of course, other things that were approved were the budgets of the constituencies, including the office of the chair, our delegations, and that of the African country delegation. And then what we also saw was the renewal of the governance working group leadership. We've also seen the new PRC vice chair, Saadatu Isa, I'm trying to remember the name accurately, who is from Nigeria, currently appointed as the vice chair for the PRC. And of course, we now have a new executive board chair, Anne Claire Ampre. The name is French. Forgive me, I'm not French. I'm trying to not murder some of the names, but she has also been appointed by the board as the new chair. And of course, the current vice chair, Cecilia Ishitam, who is the ambassador of Brazil in Geneva, has term also been extended for 6 months, and the next process to elect or to get a new vice chair will start in the next 6 months. So those were some of the key decisions that were made. And maybe if already you have something to add quickly, then I can jump into our delegation's points.
Okay, thank you, Abdul. Apologies. Just to mention that building up on what Abdul had said earlier, because of course we all know what's happening with the funding landscape. Earlier in the year, during the board meeting that held in June, because typically board meetings happen twice a year, there had been discussions around what are the options that Unitaid can explore, also given the fact that it is still being hosted by WHO as well, what are the financing options that it can explore to be able to continue to stay afloat. And there had been a lot of back and forth with consultants that were engaged to give us options that the board could consider. And I recall that at that board meeting, they had proposed 3 options. Out of a broad range of options of financing options, eventually the board settled on 3 key options: philanthropy platforms, catalytic blended financing, and results-based financing. So what was agreed, the resolution at the last board meeting, which held in December, was that the Secretariat now has to go ahead to proceed on a pilot basis with those 3 options, and some amount of money had also been allocated from the Secretariat budget to pilot that, because while we recognize that traditional donors who are on Unitaid will still continue to support, we're seeing a situation where core funding for Unitaid's activities are declining, over time, and there are concerns about Unitaid being able to continue with the scale of the work that it has done. In fact, one of the recommendations from the midterm review was also about probably the need for Unitaid to reprioritize and not do too many things, in terms of disease areas that it covers, but the need is still there. So that's why the Secretariat is also exploring these other 3 funding options, and the board approved through its resolution that some amount of money will be dedicated to support Unitaid to explore those other funding mechanisms and options, so that the great work that Unitaid is doing, at country level can continue. Just to also say that the year 2025 was a critical year for Unitaid, given that it's like half term into the strategy that was developed in 2023 and ends in 2027. Hence, the midterm review that was that Abdul had talked about. So the midterm review had commenced early in the year. there were several processes to it. Midterm review involved, the consultants discussing with beneficiaries of Unitaid grants, some of the countries that are benefiting, partners, people on the delegation, people, NGO board members, and different stakeholders have been interviewed, and given all of the various layers of interviews and discussions regarding how Unitaid, because basically the idea of the strategy review was to assess how Unitaid had performed and going forward, whether this current strategy is still fit for purpose, given all of the things that are happening within the space. And based on the final recommendations from the consultant who conducted the review, there was agreement that yes, Unitaid's strategy is still very relevant. There was agreement that Unitaid is on course in terms of the strategic objectives that it had set out in 2023, and there was progress in terms of innovation and a whole lot of things that Unitaid was designed to do over that period of time. But there were also concerns about, scalability, because you're having instances where yes, there are new products that are being introduced in countries by Unitaid through pilot grants, but given the shakeup in the financing landscape, many countries are not able to scale up these new innovations as it was designed. And there have been a whole lot of discussions and recommendations on how do we ensure that we're not just piloting, but these innovations are also scalable at country level. How do we strengthen country ownership and country partnership such that, these innovations actually get to the people who need them? So these were some of the conversations that happened in the midterm review. Just to also add that apart from the midterm review that was done, one of the exercises that was also conducted this year, as an add-on, is to also do an ecosystem mapping. So Unitaid, there was an ecosystem mapping conducted by another set of consultants, which actually looked at, how is Unitaid faring, who are the players in the ecosystem that are doing things that are similar to what Unitaid is doing, who are like competitors, who are people that Unitaid needs to leverage and work with better. And those findings were also very instructive and complementary, and they came up with clear recommendations on how Unitaid can continue to maintain its niche going forward. Because one of the issues that has come out is that, yes, Unitaid starts off with these innovations and some of these other things. Other organizations take it to scale, and sometimes the value add of Unitaid kind of gets lost in all of this because, by the time attribution comes, another organization is attributing a lot of the success that Unitaid had invested in as their own success as well. And, sometimes the lines get blurry, and so that was the need for us. There was a clear need, a clear demand to actually even do that ecosystem mapping and look at, okay, where is Unitaid's niche area? Where does it need to lay more emphasis on going forward? Which areas does it need to strengthen, and how can it work better and more efficiently in the years to come? So I'll just stop there, and maybe we'll now go into the comments, feedback on some of the critical areas. Abdul, back.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Lady. I see that.
And Abdul, maybe I can take it over from here because I think we've left the Q&A till afterwards. And also in the interest of time, given that we have 12 minutes left for the rest of the session, I just wanted to perhaps step in for Daniel very quickly, just to give a very quick overview for what UAN is. Daniel Townsend was the coordinator for the Unitaid Advocates Net. Send his apologies. He's recovering from surgery, so he's unable to join us. But I just wanted to share the information that Unitaid Advocates Network, UAN, which is hosted by the Global Fund Advocates Network, is a platform that helps to bring together passionate advocates that are dedicated to ensuring equity, transparency, and accountability remain at the forefront of Unitaid's agenda. So if you are interested in actually finding out more about the Unitaid, please check UAN, please check the link. You can also join their listserv as well. I also wanted to share a little bit about why GFAN AP is coordinating this call. Given that GFAN AP's work is concentrated around the Global Fund, but as you know, the Global Fund is the biggest procurer of commodities related to the three diseases, and Unitaid plays a very, very important role in terms of bringing new innovations to the ground. So there are a lot of complementarities in the work between Unitaid as well as the Global Fund, which is why GFNAP is going to be starting working around ensuring that we are coordinating as well as complementing the work that these two global institutions are actually doing. In short, this is why GFNAP is hosting this call, and do click on the link, join the listserv. They hold bi-weekly calls around relevant information sharing, etc. But GFNAP does hope to be able to bring more relevant information for the Asia Pacific region going forward in the new year. One of the things I think would be also for interest for for our members on the call from the Asia Pacific region would be that Unitaid is going to start having their new strategy development next year, and it will be a very critical moment for us to bring the issues relevant from the Asia Pacific as well into Unitaid's new strategy. So I will then ask Misaki and Jisun to share a little bit about your involvement and perspectives in terms of Unitaid, and maybe we'll start with Misaki first, and then we'll have Jisun. Thank you.
Okay, I will speak very briefly, not so long. This time, Japan hosted the board meeting of the Unitaid. So we started to work more on the Unitaid and working together with the NGO delegation and also community delegation to invite and to work together for the advocacy and also secure the activities of the delegations to prepare for the discussion. And also in Japan very much the aspect of the promoting the health industry has been very much emphasized in on the Unitaid work. So and also the civil society activities are not so much emphasized. So that the Japanese constituency is working on health and don't know so much about the civil society's role in the Unitaid. So that we worked together with the delegations and to host a kind of the event on how the civil society and NGO community delegations has been working in the Unitaid with the audiences of the Japanese wider civil society and also academia on the other kind of peoples. And also that on the context of universal health coverage or UHC, and there was the UHC 2030 steering committee meeting was also there in the very much closed date with the Unitaid, so that we also invited some advocates of the UHC 2030 and to be involved in this event. So and it was very much successful, and also civil society's role in the Unitaid has been more understood in Japanese health-related constituencies. So we would like to work together with the delegations more. Especially Japanese government has been working more on the with the Unitaid on a kind of innovation aspect and also involving the Japanese health industries to global health arena, so that we would like to work together with the delegations of the civil society community NGOs and to to monitor, review, and also engage Japanese government for a kind of the the as a kind of donor, one of the key donor countries. So yeah, stop now, and also I'd like to know more about the South Korean civil society. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Masaki. Jason, Ken, please pull out the slides. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jisun at Korean Advocates for Global Health. I'm happy to share our work with Unitaid with you all. So, yes, first, I'd like to give a brief introduction of KAGH and the context of our partnership with Unitaid. The mission of KAGH is to reduce global health disparities, and this mission is well aligned with Unitaid's goal of increasing health access and promoting equality. And South Korea is home to many innovative bio companies and products that can significantly help bridge the global health gap. This is why KAGH actively collaborates with Unitaid to serve as the crucial link between Korea's innovative capacity and the urgent needs of the world's most vulnerable populations. And since Korea is a heavily export-oriented country, the message that engaging in global health helps bio companies expand their market overseas resonates really effectively with both policymakers and the public. So we use this message as our main rationale in persuading key stakeholders to engage more in global health. Next slide, please. Now I'll give you a broad picture of Korea's partnership with Unitaid. The Korean government has been a committed partner to Unitaid since 2008. And you can see here that last year, we have been the second largest donor of Unitaid. And Korea's bio companies are also actively engaged with Unitaid. On the slide, you can see two collaboration cases from this year, one from BioNote and second from Postcom. Next slide, please. In this context, our work with Unitaid focuses on three key areas. First is the engagement with the bio industry. We serve as a vital link, encouraging the Korea bio industry to engage with the global public procurement market, primarily through organizations like Unitaid and the Global Fund. And second, engagement with the parliament. We communicate to policymakers the unique capacity of Unitaid and highlight collaboration opportunities. And third is media advocacy. We increase public awareness of Unitaid and global health by publicizing Unitaid's innovation cases, examples of collaboration with Korea, and featuring interviews with the executive director. These are the photos of the events and meetings that we have arranged this year. The next slide, please. This is my last slide. Moving forward, we plan to focus our advocacy with Unitaid around three main agendas. First, innovative finance, such as solidarity levies. And second, fostering further engagement of the Korean bio industry, including advocacy for local manufacturing and technology transfer and global public goods. Third is climate and health, including issues such as malaria and climate-smart health products. KAGH is committed to strengthening our cooperation with Unitaid and supporting more Korean bio companies to enter the global public goods market. And in this endeavor, we are open to collaborating with partners across the Asia-Pacific region. So if you have any ideas in this regard, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jason, for such a succinct and very clear presentation, and please do reach out to our colleagues more around if you're interested in finding out more information around this. We're apologies that we only have presentations from our colleagues from the donor countries. As Wim has pointed out, we do have other three delegation members from the Asia Pacific region that do send their apologies. I've reached out to Mona, who's unfortunately stuck in a workshop and she's not able to join us. And perhaps we would be able to introduce our colleagues on the next call in the near future. Happy to take any questions and or further comments from colleagues before we start wrapping up. We do know that this is one of the last calls you might be taking at the end of the year, so really appreciate you taking time from your very busy schedules to join us today. please use the raise hand function. Yes, Blessy.
Hi, thank you very much for organizing this, Rachel. My name is Blessy Kumar, part of the NGO delegation of the Unitaid and also the chair of the GFAN AP. Thank you very much to Olede and Abdul for your excellent input updating us. I just want to make one comment. Being associated with Unitaid maybe for the past 8 years, 8, 9 years, one of the things we really worked hard is to ensure that the space for communities is secured. And we even pushed Unitaid to have specific, call for proposals focusing on community-led proposals. So I just want to put out a request to you. When these happen, can you ensure that these go to community organizations? Because, it is our input that makes the decisions. And unfortunately, sometimes I do see that some UN bodies or others get what is secured and for communities going to that. That will be very important for us, especially in this time when such funding crisis is going on. That's one point. The other thing I wanted to say is that, to focus a little bit more on Asia Pacific region, we are kind of quite left behind in the whole Unitaid agenda. And I think that concerns me a lot. So I'm reaching out to our African colleagues to make sure that you push for inclusion of Asia Pacific members, whether it is in the delegation or in the board. I know we had challenges in getting a board member, and I mean, great to see Abdul filling into that space really well. But going ahead, keep this in mind. Let the new year really be an inclusive one for all our regions, especially for the regions that are most affected and most inequitably served. But thank you very much, and thanks, Rachel, for organizing this.
Thanks so much, Blessy. Do I see any other colleagues that might have other comments or would like to have any questions for our presenters so far? If not, then perhaps I'll take I'd like to close this session and thank all of you for joining us today out of your very, very busy schedules. It's going to be 2 more weeks before the new year. It's been a really, really tough year for everybody, as you know, given some of the donor withdrawals and the outcomes of the recent Global Fund replenishment. But it doesn't mean that we stop our work. I guess there's also a lot of opportunities in terms of the work that we'll be doing. Trying to do more with less, I suppose, is going to be some of our mottos going forwards. So wishing all of you a very, very... Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good holidays. We'll see all of you in the new year very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Wim.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Abdul.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.